Hello and welcome to the Survivor's Guide to Life, and this is episode 105.
That's a lot of episodes.
That's a lot of episodes.
Yep.
And we are going to follow along very much so on our last podcast topic, which was episode 104. We were talking then about how essential self-care is for caregivers, for first responders, and actually for anyone going through a very difficult time, and right now that includes just about everyone. However, we want to be sure that there isn't some confusion out there, because we've been seeing it.
There is some confusion.
There is some confusion, and we want to clear that up for anyone watching or listening about what some of the things we're seeing that people may think are self-care really aren't.
Not at all. And we're seeing too much of this. It's an aberration. You know, I haven't seen it like this before, but this crisis is different in some ways. The COVID-19 crisis. We're near about a year now.
Yes.
And we've seen a lot of things that we were familiar with from other crises that we've worked and been through. But there's some things unique to this one that I'm seeing that are a little distressing. When I say the whole thing is distressing.
It's all distressing.
But I think what we're seeing is some misunderstandings. And that does bother me. We do encourage and train people and know how important it is for self-care, particularly for people like ourselves that are frontline in the trenches working, helping people during this very difficult time. There's plenty of other people in the trenches, first responders, nurses, doctors, so many, firefighters, cops. We're all in the trenches, and we live it. It's a choice that we've made, but it's tough.
Right.
So we live a different kind of life. Then there is what's happened in this crisis, where everybody is being confronted with that kind of extraordinary reality, and it's tough. If it's not something you've chosen, in fact, if you've been avoiding dealing with difficult things in life, boy, this one has busted that really big time.
And there's a hint to what we're going to be talking about today.
Yes. And we want to make sure that I don't do all the talking. And I got plenty to say. Our producer back there is giving the thumbs up.
The thumbs up.
So we want to have an interaction. Jenny's got plenty to say. And at our institute, she's the administrator. She assists me in so much work. And she's one of the people that really stands through the fires and really comes through. So she's got plenty to say too. But I do today about this particular issue.
I know you do, yeah. We have a lot to say about this, and I want to go right ahead and go into the thing that has been disturbing to see happening, particularly among some leaders, that this misunderstanding of what it takes to do self-care and what it is, where you can go off course.
Yes, and we train leaders. We help people in developing leadership abilities. But I have seen people who have been in leadership roles. And as long as they have the role and they perform in the role, fine, people leave them alone. And if they're pretty good at it, it's great. But what we're seeing is this crisis has separated the men from the boys. And I mean that, men and women.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of women leaders. Plenty, and I have great respect. Our place is run like that, and I love it. But here's what I'm finding out, that people that are professed to be leaders, when it really push comes to shove, and the people they're leading are in need of their skills, their abilities, their initiatives, there's too many that are not coming through. And they've used the excuse of self-care and care for others as a way of running away from their responsibilities. They'll use the law, they'll use all the facts, the scientific facts, as ways to justify abdicating their role and their responsibilities completely.
I think, we need to explain that, because what does that look like? How are they abdicating their role by being really into rules, restrictions?
Well, they can use that as a justification, even self-care, for not leading and attending to the needs of those people that look up to them and are looking for leadership, particularly now. Mm-hmm. I've seen a lot of our principles of self-care bastardized and misused, and that concerns me because we're great proponents of self-care. We know how important it is, but we're seeing it being misused too. It distresses me, to be honest with you, to see that, because there's so many people in need of good leaders, of people to take the initiative to demonstrate caring for those that are looking up to them. This is a time that, like I said, separates the men from the boys in leadership roles. As you can tell, just that breath alone will tell you how distressed I've been to see some of this. I've also seen people take this crisis as an opportunity, just like we've talked about, to finally step out, the things they've wanted to do, to reevaluate their lives, to really take a good look at what they've maybe neglected, maybe didn't take, that they were so focused on getting ahead and financial and professional and every other way, security and ambition, that they left things that were really more deeply important, they neglected them. Well, this crisis has been a great opportunity for people who I've seen this, where they've taken the reins and they go, okay, I'm going to finally use this in some way to do what I've always what I've always been called to do, what I've always wanted to do. It's risky. I'm scared. I don't know how it's going to work out, and they use it to take the initiatives to step out. It's an exciting thing to watch when people do that.
What I'm hearing you say is that the leaders that play it safe instead of taking a risk are the ones who are letting down the people that they're leading.
Absolutely. And we talk about it in one of our papers on how to find hope and in times of crisis, and resilience in time of crisis. We talk about the spirit of fear and how overpowering that can be, and what that can lead people to do, start worrying and getting anxious and anticipating all these terrible things in the future. And once they get a hold of it, it turns into panic, paralysis, paranoia, discouragement, despair. It's all emotional reactions. And there's too many people that succumb to that, believing that that's leading them in the right way. It is not. So we've talked about it a lot. That is the spirit of fear, and that particular thing is our enemy during difficult times. When you begin to embrace that, and the fear takes over, and the discouragement, the despair, and the paranoia, you see people just begin to pull away, and they always have good reasons and good excuses. In this crisis, there has been so much information to scare people. So much rules and laws and politics and everything else, it can give people an arsenal of ammunition to justify living out the spirit of fear. That's never what we were talking about. I've seen it, though, and I've seen the leaders use it that way. That disturbs me, because they manifest that to the people that are looking up to them, and also they stop caring and showing real, genuine care and concern for their people who are looking up to them. I have to say, I've seen some others which really I'm very inspired by. They can't do it the way they wanted to, but they find some way to get the message across to those people looking up to them that they're cared for. And they even have to work harder at it to get the message across and to deliver the goods. They have to get very creative in these days. You think of churches that haven't been able to meet for a long time, but yet some of these leaders in these churches found some way to convey the message to their fellowship that they're cared about. We're going to find some way to hold you up and support you. And it may be creative, it may not be the ideal of what we could normally do, but the message is, I care, we care.
Yeah. And
that is so important during these times.
So I'm hearing a couple different things. And one is, what is a leader communicating to the people they lead? What attitude? Are they communicating a spirit of fear or a spirit of courage in moving forward? There are some things that have happened out of this crisis that were some kinds of restrictions and guidelines that some were smart, some were worth doing, others were maybe overboard. But your point is, even after you find that right balance between risks and safety, the attitude of a leader still makes a big difference.
Absolutely. And we didn't say that there's not normal fear. We use it here at the Institute, and we know that there has been a call for precautions. It has been taken in so many different directions, some of it good and some of it paranoid. It's up to a leader to figure out how to sort that thing out. And sometimes we make mistakes. I mean, people make mistakes, but a good leader is transparent enough to go, I think I blew it on this one, and I want you to know about it because I want you to look at it differently. So they're more human and more accessible. We're talking about authority, and I remember that I did my PhD dissertation on it.
I've read it. I remember you had 4 sections to it, and one of them was on types of authority. Yeah,
and it was a long time ago, and that's why I forgot about it. I did it a long time ago.
There was authoritarian.
Yeah.
There was authoritative.
Right.
And there was it permissive? Yes.
And we also talked about different kinds of authority, prescribed role authority, where a person is put into a role that has authority to it.
Right.
And they're able to dispense that authority and fill the role. That doesn't mean they're authoritative, which is a natural authority, a natural ability. Not everybody has that.
An example of that would be like in the military. There are ranks. And everyone at a certain rank some will be good authorities, they may not all be.
And that's the more rigid. Police departments are like that too.
Right.
And there's a reason for that. You mentioned something that stands out to me, and you mentioned courage, about leaders having courage. Well, here's the thing. What is courage? To me, it doesn't mean it's an absence of fear.
Absolutely
It's the people that can rise above the fear and not let the spirit of fear control them and take them down and misguide them, but do what they have to do anyway and encourage others to do the same thing by exemplifying it to them. There was one of my friends, I have a lot of friends that were Marines, and one of my friends, Kevin, from New Jersey, was a Marine, a tough guy, and he talked about one of the battles in Vietnam where his unit was overrun. I think it was 5,500 North Vietnamese regulars versus, I think, 400 or 500 Marines at the most. It could have been a slaughter. It was that bad. And there was a priest. They call him what was his name? From Staten Island.
The Grunt Padre.
Yes. Fabulous man. And I read his book. I read a book about him.
Yeah.
And he found his way in. He was at the side of those men. He would go out, never carry a weapon, but he'd go out in the most dangerous missions with them. He was always there for them. When he was there at this mission. Mm-hmm. And there's battleships named after him. There's medical centers named after him. But Kevin was there, and Kevin was a tough guy, so I wouldn't worry about it, although it was very traumatic, that battle. Yeah. But he talked about seeing the Grunt Padre. He saw him, first of all, get wounded several times during this thing, and there was a medic that ran to help somebody who was wounded, and it was right in front of a machine gun going off. Mm-hmm. And this priest jumped in front of that medic so he could do it and took the bullets himself and was killed. Yeah. My friend witnessed it. Oh. And when I talked to him after many years, he says, I want you to read about this because this is what you call the real thing. Because this man is a formidable leader. He was so far beyond his priestly role. In fact, he had done other missions, and he never was really fulfilled until Vietnam, and he wanted to go to the front lines where the real action was. Yeah. And he found his calling there. Yeah. He inspired so many people. He did. And if he could inspire Kevin and some of my other buddies, he was a hero, this guy. He was real.
Character.
In fact, my friends still talk about him today. So, look at that and you go, that's courage. Mm-hmm. Did he have fear? Of course he did. Human. And he was helping, he was there to hold up his other Marines, and he was there to encourage them when they were feeling fearful or hopeless or discouraged. and they had good reason to be, and yet he rose above it. In fact, put his life on the line to say, after he'd been wounded several times, to save a medic so a medic could send to the man that had been wounded.
Yeah.
That's a hero to the extreme.
To the extreme.
Yeah, and we have those people.
Yeah.
Our producer back there and
Hey,
our
Steve.
technical he's got some good things to say.
Yes, there he is. There's Steve.
Steve, what's you thinking?
Well, one other quality of leadership that you haven't talked about is that a leader nurtures other leaders. You've nurtured Jenny to be a leader. You've nurtured Jenny to face her challenges, her fears. And you've done it in a way that wasn't patronizing. You've done it in a way that was encouraging. But most of all, you've done it in a way that's effective. And that's one of the things that you could talk about in terms of COVID, is that not only are leaders stepping in and meeting the needs of people, but they're stepping in and encourage others to lead.
Absolutely. And bring out I call it the character, the real in-depth character that an individual can have. Jenny does have a lot. But I also remember when she started, she's on the front lines, and she was scared. And she was petrified. And I realized, whoa, we better get her on her feet because she's going to be a victim very soon. And I remember quaking in her boots, and I've seen many. The truth is, so have many others, men and women. The only one that stood the test is sitting right next to me. And she is quite a leader.
Well, just to clarify that, you're talking about men and women at the Institute. There's other men and women out there that have done that.
Well,
yeah, and I'll just add, because I want to make sure this is clear, just in case, to everybody out there, the kind of self-care that's misguided is the kind of self-care that people would think of as self-protective, in a way that you think, I must protect myself so that I'm not going to get hurt. I don't take risks that are more than I feel like taking. And then you end up kind of closing yourself off from, if you're a leader, from taking responsibility for the people depending on you. Or you close yourself off from the opportunities that you were talking about, like Colleen has taken, that people have taken to develop a new career or a new
and we've seen plenty
calling.
of that.
So this misguided self-care is a failed self-protection mechanism.
It's not real self-care. And that's the thing, to discern the difference between real self-care, which we know is important, versus using it as an excuse to run away.
Yeah.
And abdicate your responsibilities to others.
Right.
And that's what a leader is there for, other people, right? And we've seen too many do just that. They abdicate and they use all of the excuses of self-care and protection, and yet there's a completely different flavor to it, a different feel.
Yes.
Underneath they are running away, and they're leaving and abdicating to people who really look to them and look up to them and need it more than ever. And all of a sudden, they don't have a leader.
No.
And they're out there all by themselves taking all the hits one way or the other, and there's no leadership for them. We've seen some come through themselves and really come to the forefront and become leaders themselves. Steve's wife is one, Colleen.
Yeah.
But we've seen too many who everybody thought were real authorities. They weren't.
And I would say it's not only leaders. I would say that anyone who has people depending on them. If you're a parent, if you're a caregiver, if you're just in any role where someone depends on you to come through for them, and instead you're going to pull back and just watch out for yourself, thinking, I'm going to take care of myself, that's again an example of the problem we're talking about.
And it's also where they pick up the fear of the situation. I'm talking about a caregiver. Mm-hmm. Now, you guys, we have teams of caregivers. I frankly, they're marvelous people and doing great work, and they are real pros as teams. I've also seen others that are do-gooders, that they mean well, mm-hmm. but when it really comes down to it, they realize, whoa, this is a hard job, and it's scary. And I'm not saying that we're talking about people who run away. I'm just saying all of a sudden the reality hits of being a good do-gooder is not enough. Yeah. I've got to, in fact, all my fears are coming out right now, and I don't know what to do, and the person in front of me is panicking. And what a real good caregiver is a Jenny or her team And they feel those things too, but they know they have to put, as leaders and caregivers, they have to put their stuff aside temporarily because they have to take care and provide for the person in front of them who's in greater need.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very difficult and very high calling. It's not just being a do-gooder. You may start there, but boy, does it take a professional approach without being cold and cut off. And it doesn't mean later on you're not going to feel the consequences of what you went through, but you can't get into it at the time. You're there as an authoritative person to help that person get through their panic or their something they're facing in their life that's life-threatening. And even though it's terrifying and heartbreaking, somehow you've got to be able to put it over here on the side temporarily and attend to them. That doesn't mean being cold like the medical model, and being so removed. We're not talking that, but it's actually feeling what's going on, but not letting our emotions contaminate the job at hand. A good leader knows how to do it and will do it. So they may feel the same fears and needs as anyone else, but they have the ability to go, I can't get into my stuff right now because they need me. I've got to show them that I care and that I'll lead and that I'll take risks. And I may make mistakes, but they know that I'm there for them and that I'm caring for them, I'm protecting them, and I'm guiding them. And I'm just as human, but I have there's something inside of me that makes me feel more what they call authoritative. An authoritative person is interesting. And I wanted to
You know what? I'm going to jump in.
Go, jump.
Because what you were just talking about had to do with how to do what we're talking about. It was about some thoughts about how to become a good leader, how to rise above the fear that makes you want to be self-protective and get off track. And I think we need to save it for our next episode because this is going to be a more than one episode.
Yeah, she knows more about this instead of Steve.
And I've been watching my
I can
clock.
just go rolling right to episode number.
I know, we could just keep going. But I think what we'd like to do is, this feels like a good place to stop for today.
Really?
And then we're going to be coming back next time and we'd like people to come back and go, hey, I want to have that. I want to know how to put that in my life. And we'll take more time with it next time and get deeper into it.
Wow. I got to sit here with that for a week. But you know what? She's leading right now, and I'm following, and she's right. And their positions as a leader, by the way, can change. So, and if you're a good one and you don't let your ego get in the way, you're able to abdicate to other people in a good way and realize they have plenty of authority, good authority too. Here it sits. So I'm deferring to Jenny. I hear her, and...
I think you've given people a lot to think about.
Really?
I do. Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really thinking myself.
No, because you. This is also part of you.
It's personal. It is, and I was raised to be a leader.
Yes.
And I have an arsenal my whole life, so I love to communicate that to other people and give them the confidence.
Yep.
Anyway, Jenny's leading her way.
I'm going to lead my way to the end here.
To the end.
And we will be back and we will continue on this topic. So thank you for joining us. This has been the Survivor's Guide to Life podcast brought to you by Sonoma Coast Trauma Treatment, a 501c3 charity. Their website is sctraumatreatment.org, and we would greatly appreciate any support you can give them. We have our Facebook page. We have our YouTube channel. We're on Instagram. Please like, share, watch, listen. We're on all the podcast outlets. Peter and I are at BernsteinInstitute.com. I'm Jenny at BernsteinInstitute.com.
I'm Bernstein.
He's Bernstein. I'm Jenny. It works out.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.
Keep the faith.
Oh, our phone numbers.
Oh, the faith.
Steve is helping us. 707-781-3335.
And I want to say keep the faith. Hang in there. And we'll give you more information next week.
Next week.
Anyway, take
Promise.
care. All our best to you.
Bye-bye.